Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm Sister Eilis McCulloh, a Humility of Mary sister and on staff at Network. And we are here tonight to host our Care Not Cuts rally. I'm joined tonight by Sister Erin Zubel, Network staff, and members of our Cleveland Advocates team. Tonight, we will hear from a number of speakers about the devastating effects that the proposed cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, HUD, and other social safety net programs will have on Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley. As we begin tonight, we're going to start in the way that we start all of our network programs, and that is with prayer. So I will invite Father Lawrence to come up and open us in prayer.
I'm smiling as I'm coming up because Sister, after several practice on how to say my last name, she chickened out. So my last name is pronounced Nwabueze. Nwabueze. It's my pleasure to be in your midst this evening, and let us pray. Compassionate God, our hearts are broken when we see longer lines at community food pantries and listen to our neighbors wonder if they will still be able to afford their medical care or keep a roof over their heads. We pray you, God, that you stir the hearts of our congressmen and women to be proactive with legislations that protect and support basic human needs programs. God of justice, may our vision for the common good of all spread throughout the halls of Congress. May we work to create thriving communities where all people have enough food to eat, a safe and stable home, and affordable medical care. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Father. Now, as we set the stage for tonight's speakers, I want to remind all of you that we are just days away from the June 1st deadline before our country defaults, and some members of Congress, as they're negotiating, want to play games with our lives. But we're reminded that we need to raise up the truth of our communities and the truth that the effects of these cuts will have on the people that we serve and live alongside. We know that the federal budget should be a moral document that guides our Congress and promotes the common good. No exceptions. It needs to be a moral budget that does not let our communities suffer by cuts to food, Medicaid, housing, and other programs, while wealthy corporations continue to prosper untaxed. So what will these cuts look like in Ohio? And this is the big picture for the entire state. There will probably be 780,000 fewer jobs by the end of 2024. 8,500 Head Start slots will be taken away from children in Ohio. Almost 250,000 Ohio veterans will lose their health care. 198,000 Ohioans will have to pay more for college. 23,000 Ohioans will lose rental assistance. And as many as 1,500 families in Ohio who are attempting to flee domestic violence, who are homeless, or who are at the risk of homelessness will lose access to emergency housing vouchers. And we also know that in light of the Norfolk Southern train derailment in East Palestine earlier this year, that this budget that's being pushed will lead to 330 fewer rail safety inspection days and 880 fewer miles of track inspections in Ohio next year alone. And that's really just the start. And so we at Network, we say that we need to protect our thriving communities. And so we say together, we say care not cuts. So if I can get everyone to say that with me. Care not cuts. And so to really delve in and look at what this will mean in Youngstown, in Warren, in the Mahoning Valley at large, we're going to hear from a number of speakers. And up first, we'll hear from Tom Hetrick, who is the president of Youngstown City Council. Tom?
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see so many people who have come out here to talk about this important issue. My name is Tom Hetrick. I'm the president of council for the city of Youngstown, and I am here tonight to urge our elected members of Congress not to solve this debt ceiling crisis by making cuts to programs that provide food, medical, and housing assistance to families that need it the most across the country, here in Ohio and here in Youngstown. Recently, food, medical, and housing assistance programs have already been cut. Just a few months ago, families lost monthly SNAP allotments. They were reduced. I just saw a headline today in the New York Times. Hundreds of thousands of people are losing Medicaid coverage that they had received during the pandemic. And pandemic housing assistance funding has run out, and families are facing a wave of evictions, and that includes right here in Youngstown. For many of us, I think the pandemic highlighted the great health disparities that exist in our country and that exist right here in Youngstown, in Warren, in the Mahoning Valley. Just recently, I got a call from a team of researchers from the Ohio State University. They were asking a lot of questions about Youngstown neighborhoods because they had done a study and found that Youngstown neighborhoods were some of the most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And as leaders, I think we must be working together to reduce these health disparities and improve health outcomes for all. I strongly believe that the pillars of good health include food security, so knowing that you can have food for yourself, your family, food that's healthy, fresh, and affordable. We all need medical security, knowing that we have medical care that's available to us, that is affordable, and it will not make us go into debt in order to pay for it. And we all need housing security, knowing that we have a safe place to live for ourselves, our family, and knowing that our neighborhood is safe and a place that we can afford. Unfortunately, and I think many of us know this, Youngstown and Warren, we struggle with all of those things. The lives of thousands of Youngstown residents would be impacted by cuts to these programs. I'm just going to share a few examples. Here in Youngstown, we have approximately 10,000 households. So that's more than a third of everyone who lives in Youngstown receives SNAP benefits, including many of our seniors here. And we have very few grocery stores left in the city of Youngstown. It's been well discussed and documented that many neighborhoods in Youngstown are food deserts. So people do not have access to fresh, healthy food within their neighborhood. And if they do, oftentimes they can't afford to buy it. Similarly, thousands of our residents rely on medical assistance programs, and this is so necessary because sadly, Mahoning County ranks as one of the least healthiest counties in the whole state of Ohio. We rank number 72 out of 88 counties across the state, especially for overall health outcomes, and that includes quality of life and length of life. And on the housing front, a 2020 study of housing conditions in Youngstown found that we have a severe shortage of affordable housing. We don't have enough housing for seniors, so 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments, ranch-style houses. A lot of renters in Youngstown are paying way too much of their income just to be able to afford to live in a place that is usually not a desirable place to live, and prices are only going up. Now, most of us are well aware of these issues. We have many nonprofits, institutions, businesses, organizations, many of them are here tonight that are working to address these issues. We have the best of intentions, we work very hard, but there's simply not enough money here locally to solve all of these problems. So we need funding from the federal government to provide food, medical, and housing assistance. So once again, I do call on our elected members of Congress to find other ways of solving this debt crisis and to leave the programs that provide assistance to the neediest among us, leave them alone, leave them out of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we will hear from Michael Stepp, who is the Executive Director of the St. Vincent de Paul Society here.
Sister, thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Stepp, and I am the Executive Director with St. Vincent. And it's really great to be here tonight with so many friends and future friends, those of you who I have not yet had a chance to meet. So I would like to thank Network and the organizers of this event for inviting me to come here and speak for a few moments. I'm very pleased to be here at St. Patrick's, which is a member of St. Vincent de Paul. So it's very exciting to be here. St. Vincent de Paul, for those of you who may not know, is a Catholic lay organization that primarily provides food assistance to needy families in our community. For nearly 90 years, we've been in the trenches of the fight against systemic poverty by providing direct services to people who need it, and to those who rely upon us. We are largely a volunteer-run organization and operate on a shoestring budget. Our money goes to the work. We provide, for those who may not know, we provide this assistance primarily through our dining hall and our food pantry, which is on the north side near St. Cyril and Methodius Church on Wood Street. Our dining hall, we serve up to 1,500 hot meals 5 days a week, including breakfast on Saturday, so we're really active. Annually, we serve well over 50,000 meals to families throughout the community. Without our services, many hundreds of people conservatively would struggle to find a hot meal at least once per day here. At our food pantry, we provide hundreds of food boxes to people throughout the year. We also meet the needs of hundreds more who walk in to our pantry each week. On average, we distribute about 1,500 pallets of emergency food assistance annually. We're very proud of that. St. Vincent de Paul sits at the crossroads of where failed and insufficient public policies meet the lives of everyday folks, or those who find themselves temporarily in hardship like we found during the COVID pandemic. We see many people on their worst days who come to us, and they feel that they need to swallow their pride and their dignity and ask for help. So it is a core principle of ours that we treat people respectfully and we refer to them as our guests and not our clients. As any direct service organization here will tell you, it costs a lot of money to provide these services. Any cuts anywhere in the system will make it extraordinarily difficult for everyday people across all demographics to get help. Last year, we witnessed an over 25% increase in the number of people that we help. This year, we know that it's going to be higher. We've already seen it. Why? Because of the already current cuts to SNAP, right? So we know what's going to happen, right? We've seen it already with the current cuts. Our experience isn't unique either among direct service groups. Your help would be greatly appreciated and greatly needed. And I want to say it's fitting that we're here today, as Sister said, as Tom said, I should say, discussing food assistance, Medicaid, and other social programs because of the discussions about the debt ceiling crisis in Washington. And what is unfortunate by everything we're hearing is that what's on the chopping block of the programs that we care about most, right? And it's very frustrating and it's very angering, and I'm glad we're here to say that we're opposed to the fact that every time there's a crisis in Washington, What gets sacrificed or what gets discussed to be sacrificed is what we hold dear. This is wrong, and this is why we are here. What's interesting is that I usually speak extemporaneously, but I wanted to write this down, so if it went, I probably should have spoken extemporaneously. All right. So now, St. Vincent de Paul is a nonpartisan organization. But these issues ought to be nonpartisan and non-political, right? So because of the cuts to SNAP benefits, we have already seen this huge increase in people that need our assistance. We have seen an increase in the number of seniors and retirees and middle-income families in our community who need our help. Economic hardships cut across all demographics and impact many people in our communities and our neighbors, even those you might not expect. So why are we here? We're here because, I love this phrase, by the way, a budget is a moral document. It is. Public policy that impacts the most vulnerable among us is a moral conversation in our country. It isn't about balancing a budget. It's about doing what's right. It's about choosing to live in a country that reflects our best values that we can be proud of. That's where we want to live. It is no longer enough for organizations that help the poor to ignore the need to make our voices heard in the halls of decision-making, whether they be in Columbus or Washington or Youngstown or anywhere. At our best, we make our voices heard. We tell our stories, and we demand that our priorities aren't the ones that are on the chopping block in the name of fiscal responsibility or raising the debt ceiling, right? The two shouldn't be in the same conversations. We are here today to say that our democracy works best when we see faces, when we see people, when we see families, and not just the numbers. The shame that some people feel when they come, unfortunately shame, when they come to ask us for help should pale in comparison to the shame that we feel if we do not act and make our voices heard. To quote St. Vincent de Paul, charity is the cement which binds communities to God and persons to one another. We are called to help the most vulnerable among us, not only to ease their burdens, but to create what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and others called the beloved community. And finally, we can no longer wait for others to fight our fight for us. We cannot hope that somehow the threats to our values will pass. They won't. And there is no other room in this town and at this hour where good people here have gathered to make our voices heard and hold our values high. I want to end with a quote from President Barack Obama, which has inspired me for a long time. The change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And up next, we'll welcome Fred Berry, who is the President and CEO of Humility of Mary Housing.
Thank you, Sister Eilis. Good evening, everybody. I'm not going to carry the finesse that my predecessors and or those who follow me, but I'm going to do my best to share with you all what the impact is going to, of not raising the debt ceiling or addressing the issues regardless, is going to have on the folks that we serve. So as the sponsored ministry, housing ministry of the Sisters of the Humility of Mary, we provide housing to low-income seniors and a variety of persons or households experiencing homelessness in 4 Northeast Ohio counties, which includes Trumbull, Lorain, Summit, and Cuyahoga County. We serve in very impoverished areas. Our site in Trumbull County is in Girard, and as most of you may be aware, Girard in particular has a very high ratio. I want to say it's north of 30% of households being served living below the poverty line, right? The mission of Humility of Mary Housing is to promote and strengthen the self-sufficiency of individuals and families, especially those who are poor, through advocacy, supportive services, and quality housing. So today I'm with you as a result of honoring the advocacy piece of our mission. We meet our mission every day, providing housing to low-income seniors ages 62 and older. We have one property that serves low-income seniors 55 and older. And then also we have approximately 81 units that provide housing to a variety of homeless populations, which include families, chronically homeless single men and women, youth ages 18 to 24 who have aged out of the foster care system. Pretty all-inclusive list there. And it can grow. We know the need is going to grow, especially if these cuts take shape or become reality. In order to be eligible for our programming, the highest level of income for most of our housing is 50% of area median income. And let me just take a moment to put that in perspective for you. So on the low-income senior side, a low-income senior at 50% or below of area median income would not be allowed to make more than $30,400 a year. And if I look at what that is as far as an hourly wage, it's $14.62 an hour. Most of the households that we serve are also below, living below that threshold significantly. And I would say 35% or below, which in dollars and cents, that's $18,250 a year. And I share this with you to say pre-COVID, we benchmarked $15 an hour as a living wage. COVID today, post-COVID, in Ohio, it's north of $17 an hour. So that may not sound like a lot, but if you think about it, that's an extra $5,000 a year that's needed just to provide basic needs. Think of what we all could do with an extra $5,000 in our pocket, right? So it is a lot. There's a gap that really will be devastatingly increased should Congress not act using the moral compass that we've been talking about, right? When it relates to housing, presently only 1 in 4 households that is eligible for rental assistance gets it. 1 in 4, so 25%. So even with the resources that we have today, we're not even scratching the surface, right? And they want to cut them further. They're talking about reducing to budget levels that are fiscal year 2022 budget levels. So that means nearly 1 million households would lose the rental assistance. And you can get to the natural conclusion of what that's going to look like. We're going to see a lot more evictions filed in court as a result. And, when we're talking about affordable housing in the state of Ohio, the number of affordable units that we are in deficit has increased by 6%. So we lack 276,000 units in the state of Ohio. And that number is going to increase, right? Rents are unaffordable for most, especially those that we serve. And we're only going to see that number go up. Landlords are not as likely to work with programs like ours because they can get higher rents. And so, it's not as appealing for them to accept what HUD deems an acceptable rent amount. And so this is really going to just increase exponentially the challenges that we are faced with in service to the most marginalized. And I also want to call out the issue as well. I would be remiss standing before you as a white male to highlight for you all that who's this going to impact the most? It's going to be our African American brothers and sisters and other people of color. We already know that systems have systemic racism is real, and the systems have been set up in a way that it becomes increasingly more challenging for our African American brothers and sisters to access the services they need, and they are being kept in poverty for no reason at all. So I just want to make that perfectly clear, as that's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. 120,000 people experiencing homelessness would not be able to access the services in their crisis response system in the communities in which we serve. We're looking at the national level, 900,000 older adults would lose their access to SNAP or other food assistance, which others have touched on. This also includes 540,000 families, which includes 1 million children. Again, these are national numbers, but all of these families and households would be at risk of losing their cash assistance or other types of assistance altogether. So the numbers in Ohio, 42,014 families in Ohio on TANF. Nearly 5,000 of those are single parent families. 36,000, almost 38,000 are singles. And again, in Ohio, it includes about 69,000 kids. The last thing we want to see is anyone go hungry at night, but imagine a child going to bed hungry at night. To me, that just is unacceptable. It's not okay. And that's why I'm here today, not only to support Network, but also all of my peers that are with me, and just, to embrace that we have a call to action here, and we all need to step up and do our part. And hopefully this encourages you all that it's so important that we speak out on behalf of those that are marginalized every day for no reason. So thank you very much. And I'm excited to hear what the others have to say.
Thank you, Fred. And next, we have Elder Rose Carter, who serves as the Executive Director of Action.
Thank you, Sister. Action, the Alliance for Congregational Transformation Influencing Our Neighborhoods. I think Father Noga is the one that put that together years ago. Thank you so much for inviting me to come. As I listened to all of the people that were ahead of me, they really told the story about the crisis that we're in right now. Back in 2016, I believe it was determined by not only the mayor but others that we were in a food desert. And you wonder, well, what is a food desert? And sometimes people and I'm going to talk a little bit about the community mobile truck that is very successful. But a lot of times people that they feel that maybe they're not eligible for food off of the truck or things like that. But when you're in a food desert, everybody is in a food desert. I thank you for the comments that were made from others, Head Tom, and also I think you kind of stole Action. It tells you that he was an Action director before me. So let's do it. One of the things that we look at, as I said, Action is not a direct service program. We don't do that. However, the word action, what we do is look at the problem and we do action. We make a change in what's going on. As I said before, in 2016, 2017, I believe it was 2016, that it was determined that we are all in a food desert, all of us. And the Mahoning Valley, which takes up not only Youngstown or Mahoning County, it takes up Trumbull County and also Columbiana. Action actually is in all three of those counties. And so in 2017, we looked, a task force that we had, we looked at the fact that we were being squeezed. And yes, it does affect the African American and people of color, but it also affects all of us. And all of us, a lot of times, are senior citizens, because some of those same senior citizens are raising children. I'm a senior citizen now. I raised my grandson from 14 years old to 32, cried when he left. But I was able to have a job. Now I couldn't do it. But there are so many senior citizens that are doing this now. And our Congress, our congressmen, our president, they don't care. Care, not cuts. I like the way that you put that. In 2017, I'll go back. We asked the mayor, whoever was running for mayor, we asked him, put together a task force, a food task force, because we were in a food desert. We had about 3 or 4 meetings, but action is of action. You know that, Christine, we do it. Vicki, you know we do action. And so what we did, one of the things is we said we need to be able to feed our people in the meantime. And so I got with Jeff Magada, who is with Urban Grow Farms and Flying High. We got together and we put together pop-up markets. We needed our people to be able to have fresh fruits and vegetables, all of those things, because what? It affects not only our physical, mental, and spiritual bodies. And so we wanted to make sure that we did that. So we put I think it was on each side of town. We had the pop-up markets. We also wanted to help the farmers. So we got the fresh vegetables and fruits and meats from local people. And not so meats, but the fruits and vegetables. Well, I was coming off the freeway one day, and I saw an older lady pushing a buggy up Wirt Street. And she had all of her groceries where she had been at Family Dollar or Dollar Street or one of those stores. And I said, wait a minute, we need to go to her. And so I called Jeff again. Jeff put me in his truck. We went over to the farm, Pastor. And what we did is, I said, do you remember, now he's much younger than me, but I said, do you remember when we had the chicken man, the egg man, the watermelon man, all of them people that came? I'm from the Sharon line, so you know, out there in the country. So they would come around and they would buy fruits, vegetables, eggs. And I said, Jeff, let's put together a grocery store on wheels. And thanks to Vicki Vickers, who was a part of it at that time, she wrote a grant, did some surveys, and did some data. And so we were able to come up with that grocery store on wheels. And we were able, thanks to the commissioners, to the city of Youngstown, who bought the truck for us. And we were able, residents, people, it didn't matter. A young man was in the Mocha House, gave me $38. And so he was able to be a part of that grocery store on wheels. And so in what we did, we worked with Jeff, worked with other different people in the community, and now we are 1 year old, and in 7 months, we raised over $500,000. Give me a hand clap, come on. Those vouchers were vouchers that were given to us by Mercy Health. It was given to us by the commissioners. It was given to us by other churches, St. Pat, St. Edward's, Elizabeth Baptist, different churches that actually, and believe me, people are hungry. They do not have the money. There was a lady, not a young lady, she was a senior citizen. What she did, she works part-time. She was getting $200 a month for groceries, SNAP. Now she gets $48. How can anyone live on $48? You should see the people that come on the truck. Thanks to Mercy Health, we give them $25 a month vouchers. They can buy everything from eggs to spinach to any type of grocery. They have steaks, they have oxtails, if you like those. I do. All kind of things. Ice cream. They didn't want me to have ice cream, but senior citizens, you know, you have to have a little ice cream in the end, you know, at night for mellow. So what we did is we saw that we needed another truck, and you'll tell us about it. But we need a second truck. We cannot go every place. We need a brick and mortar grocery store in our city. Downtown. That's what we need. And we need it from the federal government. No, we can't always get everything from our city council or our governor, but we can go even further to be able. Yeah, there are 3 grocery stores, but you still have to go on the outskirts. Why is there a grocery store near in Boardman? Why is there one in Warren? How? Why don't we have, y'all know I'm a preacher, so I'm going to take up a collection in a minute. But that's how action actually works. We are not a direct service. We also, during the pandemic, we had a program, and we still have it now, where we take a hot meal to about 200 people a week in the high rises. Anybody, our senior citizens, we go to Grovewood, we go to Calvary, we go wherever, and all of that is through MyCap and other organizations that we collaborate with. When I look at Medicare, I went to the emergency room a couple of times, and it cost me $200. Now remember, Action is a nonprofit. So, nonprofits will make a lot of money, $200. How does our people who are right there on that line able to get medical help? And what happens if it's cut again? Yes, I am saying care cuts. They don't care about us. They don't care about us. But that's what Action is about. We need to speak up, not just sit on our laurels and do nothing. It takes us to even go to Washington. And you know how we used to do that, Mike? We used to go to Washington and do things. That's what. And don't say you're too old to do it. We'll give you a wheelchair, whatever. We'll take you. The other thing that I want to talk about, there was a person that was renting. Rentals now, a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, probably about 750 square feet, is actually renting for $1,100 a month, and that does not include the utilities. You used to could get that same house for $750 a month. So when we look at what's happening in our community, it's not just the other person. It's all of us. It's you affecting everyone. And so I'm going to be calling our representative. We've got a little over 30 churches and organizations, and we're going to ask them to please, I think you sent this to me already, to please sign this. Call your congressman. That's what we elected them for. Not just to sit there and pick up a paycheck, but to be able to make a difference. And I just want to thank everyone for coming and supporting. And sisters, thank you so much. This is excellent. And if you want my card, I got one.
Thank you so much, Rose. And next, we're going to hear from Reverend Joseph Boyd, who is from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Youngstown.
He's part of action.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Joseph Boyd. I'm minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church on the other side of town, on the north side. I'm grateful to join a community of leaders, and I consider all of you leaders across the city and state who are concerned about the most vulnerable people in our community. The name of this rally, which I also love, is Care, Not Cuts. And this is one small opportunity here to demonstrate a vocal commitment to care. A budget is a moral document. I will repeat it. I will repeat it. A budget shows us what we value and what we value less. It shows us who we value. It is good to know that there are many people across this state that are aware of the moral implications of cutting support for those in our community who are in need of housing, food, and medical assistance. This is one area where care should be shown. Not cuts, but care. In many of our religious traditions, and I know we have many different ones here represented, it's good to show care to those without a safety net, those who need assistance from the wider community in order to live. And the role of the wider community, us, is to offer that support for those who without it would suffer and perish. This is seen as good, as moral, as right. I'm grateful to be invited to be a member of this wider community, to ask ourselves and each other a very simple question. What does it mean to show we care for the most vulnerable among us? What do we say to the person who is hungry, to the person seeking shelter, to the person seeking medical care? Our budget will show us the answer to these questions. It will not be our churches. It will not be the scriptures we quote. It will be our budget that shows us the answer to these questions. And we say as a community, instead of cutting resources for those who are already struggling, let us offer some care. Some compassion. Some way to show that we care about people and that we care about our community members. Let us show we care not by making people struggle harder than they already are. Let us show some mercy and some gratitude that we get the opportunity as a whole community to decide what is moral, what is right, and what is caring. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, we welcome Reverend Carla Robinson, who serves as the Administrative Assistant for Action, Trumbull County.
Good evening, everyone. I'm grateful and proud to be a part of Action. We are an organization like so many who feel the aching heart of our community. We recently had really bad storms in our community. Were very much affected, and Action stepped in and came to the fight to help feed over 300 families. And we are grateful for that on tonight. There are so many people that have told me how their food stamps have been cut. The programs are being cut and people are struggling, and it's just a terrible situation that our communities are facing. No matter how many organizations will come to the rescue, we need our federal government and Congress to stand up as we strive to give you the benefit of the doubt. We ask that you would use empathy and put yourself in the place of those whose lives have been given to you to make decisions for them. Use empathy, because each and every one of us need food, clothing, and shelter. And we ask that you would consider and not make these severe cuts to humanity, to our communities. As we gather together as organization by organization, and we are striving to do our part, but we cannot do it without our Congress and our federal government stepping up and doing the right thing by the people. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you very much.
Good job.
And then finally, we welcome our last speaker, Dr. Alexis Smith.
Hi, everybody. I was just laughing with them because I'm not a preacher. I'm a local physician. I live and work here in Youngstown. I didn't even honestly prepare anything today. I was thinking about it, tearing up a little bit. I wish people could see into my head and through my eyes what I've seen. You know, as a physician, particularly dealing with devastating diseases, I have seen horrible things happen to people. And it's often the people who are the most vulnerable among us and the poorest. I've seen women show up in their 30s and 40s with a cancer eating through their breast that's spread throughout their body, and they will die in the next few years. And I have to tell them that they have this cancer. And the reason they did not seek help was because a lot of these people are living in survival mode from day to day. And unfortunately, the human mind is such that when you are living in survival mode, when you are trying to just get your basic needs met, one of the first things that goes out the door is your long-term health. It's just one of those things. I see people all the time. They're struggling to pay their bills. They're figuring out where to get food, how to, get a roof over their head, clothing, transportation. And even if they do have money and could possibly come in and get something for free to check them like a mammogram, they don't do it because they don't have the time or the ability for other reasons. All of these things are far-reaching. We don't understand how they're all interconnected, but they are. Because again, if you're just trying to survive from day to day, you're really not going to come to the hospital unless you're having a major emergency. And we force you to come, And I've literally seen people have a black leg because they are so diabetic and gangrenous that they are dying with this leg that's falling off because they have not taken care of themselves. These are real stories of things that I've seen in my life. And it's disturbing when you hear about these things like cuts that are happening, just for that reason. If you grew up at all or have ever struggled, I know growing up, we struggled a lot. We didn't know about where we were going to get our meals. You just realize how hard it is to worry about these long-term healthcare issues like cancer, diabetes. But even if that doesn't get you, if you could care less about everybody else, and you're worried about yourself only, the bottom line is preventive health care is a lot cheaper than paying for these people down the road, right? Our communities are suffering. Our states are suffering. Our country is suffering. Our world is suffering because we are allowing these people to get very sick or have very major problems that we still then have to pay for. It just doesn't even make fiscal sense. I mean, even if you just want to be selfish, it doesn't make any sense. But I hope that you want to look to the people around you in your community and you want them to be helped and you want them to have a basic standard of living. Can't we all agree on that? Particularly the most vulnerable among us, you know, the children, the elderly. That's who a lot of these cuts are going to affect. The most marginalized among us. I can't talk. The bottom line for me is this. We are the richest country in the world. And we have got to stop balancing the budget on the back of the most vulnerable among us, without first asking those who are the most fortunate to do more. If you have been advantaged in this country because, you know, you've made a bunch of money, you can help out, please, and help these people have just a basic standard of living. We're not asking for much. But thanks everybody for coming out, and please vote and call your representatives and just let them know how you feel and that this is just not okay. This will not stand. And not just for you, but for your communities, your state, the country, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And can we give a huge round of applause for all of our speakers today? They all do amazing work in this area, and their organizations are remarkable in doing what they can to meet the needs in our community. Before we wrap up, I first want to give a special shout out to Christine Silvestri for securing St. Patrick's Church, and to Vicki Vickers for doing a lot of the on-the-ground work for us. Thank you so much. As when you were all coming in, you probably received a little half sheet of paper. If someone can lift it up, wonderful. Okay. On that sheet of paper is our call to action. We need you to call your representatives, or you can email them, anything. If you are in Trumbull County, Representative Joyce is one of our biggest targets right now. There's a chance that he will support a clean debt ceiling. And that's what we're calling for at Network. That we can get enough senators on, or enough representatives on to get a discharge position so that we can work together, so that we're not cutting all the social programs that you heard all about to balance our budget. That is not moral. So please, again, call on your representatives, email President Biden, call your senators, and ask or demand them to prioritize country and the common good over petty politics.